sharing another great success story as between Kevin Murphy and John Lee. And by way of background, for those of you that are not familiar with Kevin Murphy, he certainly is a prominent member of the Island Advanced Task Force Advisory Committee. Kevin is born and bred Prince Edward Islander, graduating from the University of PEI with his business degree and opening his first restaurant in 1980. Fast forward a few years, and he now owns and operates 2 boutique hotels, the Inns of Great George and the Hotel Amponnell, along with 13 food and beverage locations on PEI. And his latest venture is the Gahan Brewery in the PEI Brewing Company, which is a wonderful facility and home to great space for events and, of course, the brewery. John Lee is president of Golden Bridge Marketing and Consulting. John grew up in mainland China, where he obtained his MBA and worked for nearly 20 years at China National Cereals, Oils, and Foodstuffs Corporation, which is one of the largest foodstuff corporations in the world. After immigrating to PEI, John noticed enormous complementary economies between China and Canada, and was aware that China was adjusting its economy to complement a foreign-oriented economy, and recognized that this would bring great opportunity for trade and investment. In 2012, he set up Golden Bridge Marketing and Consulting to help bridge the connections between China and Prince Edward Island. So John and Kevin.
Thank you. I'm doing the speaking. This story I consider a great story of the whole newcomers and coming into a province, and there's a connection in how you make it. And I think Islanders in general are very hospitable, and they're always looking at being and making connections for them. The whole China PEI, sometimes in the local entrepreneurs world, is really over their head. And sometimes it's just, they can't quite grasp it and don't really have time to do it. So I have to give a lot of credit to John. I have to give a lot of credit to the Newcomers Association, the Chamber of Commerce, and the connections that they made early on. And for us, it was really just doing what we felt was right to welcome them to our community, and hopefully they can set up business here and contribute to our economy. So 3 years ago, John and I met, and John knew very little English, and it was really us just seeing, is there any opportunities in how we grow that business? That's where it started, and for me, there was no agenda. I didn't go into this meeting thinking there was something that I had in my mind, but I quickly realized that there is some opportunity, and I guess the first thing that we looked at, and it's really not the project that John was working on, was we're in the beer business, and we buy bottles, and guess where the bottles come from? China. And we looked at it, and we were a growing company, we were a startup, and we were using 500,000 bottles a year, and last year we used 750,000 bottles, and this year we'll use 1 million bottles. So just recently we signed a contract with John that he's going to bring in the bottles and direct, instead of us dealing through a couple intermediaries. For us as a company in Prince Edward Island, it's a huge financial advantage if we can deal with someone like John, because we were paying 40 cents a bottle, and through John we'll get it for 30 cents a bottle delivered in Charlottetown. That's what started the relationship. So, but I say to all entrepreneurs, and it's really to locals and the newcomers, it's not just given to you. There is work to it. It takes time. It takes patience. You have to work with the connection you have and see how it can make sense for you. From that, I think John, through the different avenues in government, and we all know the realities of trade, and now the China Canada agreements that have just been announced, and also Prince Edward Island and the trade missions they've had to China, and what doors they can open up for us. And John's concept, and it really came through, I guess, innovation and Sebastian and his group of creating an island store in China. And for us on Prince Edward Island, it's really, for me, it was hard to get my head around it. I don't know the Chinese culture, how they do business, but I got to know John. And I got to understand a lot from him, his history, in over 3 years, and through interpreters and all that. But you got to understand that it's all built on relationships. And the culture of business over there, you have to really understand it first. And then you can do business later. And from that, John has created this cooperative, and it started with 5 businesses that agreed to participate in this group with innovation. And we have a blueberry, we have lobster, we have beer, potato. And just to start and see, and invested some money in John and his company to see if it's possible and worthwhile for us to create something real in China that would help the economy in Prince Edward Island here by creating more jobs in our primary industries, agriculture, food service. Again, you're still moving along with the process here. And then there was a delegation that John brought to Prince Edward Island this year. And it was a bunch of restaurateurs and people that knew the business. And I met with them, and it was quite a tour. Very exciting with these people. They were very excited about the whole project and the potential of what can be done in China. So when you talk about 12 or 13 restaurants in little old Charlottetown, these guys were talking 500 or 600 in Beijing. But they also believed what John was selling them. And since that, there's been some follow-up to what that concept would be, a Prince Edward Island store in China that not only sells product, but takes what Prince Edward Island is from a culture, a scenery, a community, and you take it to China and you put it in the stores over there on this Prince Edward Island store. You heard Frank Zhao talk this morning on the cows store, and that's one small thing of it. But this store would have many different products. It would be a restaurant. You would taste the product, you would see the product, and you could buy the product. And there are examples in China with the Starbucks, the Coca-Cola store. But all this is evolved with John's vision that PEI brand has something to offer in China. That is something that we sometimes have probably a harder time even comprehending the brand of Prince Edward Island. And it's not really my beer or PEI Blueberries Puree or the Muscle. It's really Prince Edward Island that you're selling first and foremost, and what is made up and what is PEI, and sell that brand in China. And the whole strategy that John has is really, it's a very high-end market. And he calls it the high of the high end when you're trying to sell the culture and the PEI brand and all that goes with it. And for us, that it's not what we sell here in Prince Edward Island or even in the Maritimes. But again, John understood that this is what will sell and this is what people will buy in China because he sees it. When John came to Prince Edward Island, he's seen it, and he's seen the opportunity of how you take something that we have here and you sell it in China. So it's a story about, I guess I look at it as two people that gave each other the time to sit down on numerous occasions to really find out if there is an opportunity, develop a relationship, develop a friendship. John likes our beer. So right from the get-go, I knew I had a friend in it. But you know, from that we've evolved, and I know through the different bodies. When I look at the chamber, or innovation, or ourselves, or John as the Chinese connection, there's a partnership there now, and this whole will evolve now to the next stage on this cooperative he talks. The relationship that I have directly is already started. And one of the biggest fears of people in business, when you even talk about China, it's really hard to comprehend and get involved and see what opportunities there are. It took us 3 years. We've just signed the contract, and we'll probably place our first order will probably be delivered in February or March of this coming year. Where that leads to, who knows? But I think the next phase with regards to John and his concept of the PEI store will happen. I know the restaurant people that he had here have a very interested and are following up. And I met with some of them individually. I am not planning on being in China, but there's a relationship that can work via John and his expertise and his company to make something happen. And the big winner I see is going to be, you know, Prince Edward Island and the brand. And the other thing I see as well is the whole other synergies that go along with us opening up a PI brand in China, is that you have this tourism and there's direct links now that the Canadian government have connected on air. Everything starts to connect together with regards to how we can position ourselves. It's not just a Canada agreement. We got to look at it as a PEI agreement, and how does PEI take full advantage of the opportunities that exist. And they will only get bigger and better as this agreement evolves and grows. And you're seeing some examples here today with some great opportunities. I think there's a lot more, but we have to look at people like John and companies that have the knowledge and the vision and understand, I guess, the Chinese. So I consider it a great story, but it's not my story as much as John's story. He's been the persistent one. I know from the newcomer's perspective, it's a lot of hard work. You're in a new community. Language can be an issue. You work through it, and I'm very proud of John and his English language over the last 2 years on how it has improved, that we can have a business dialogue now and get things done. So, thank you very much. That's the story of John Lee and Kevin Murphy.